First item is approval of the agenda.
I make the motion, we approve the, agenda with the addition of new business item B for, the closure of Railroad Street. That's the only thing we're adding.
All in favor? Okay. Consent agenda.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
All in favor? Next on the agenda is public comment. And that's going to be, Officer Whitman, come forward, please. You look so civilian. Proclamation 193-2025 honoring the retirement of Lieutenant Gary Whitman. Whereas Lieutenant Gary Whitman has devoted his life to public service, serving with honor and distinction for over 37 years in the Benson Police Department, and rises to the esteemed rank of lieutenant through unwavering commitment, leadership, and integrity. Whereas Lieutenant Whitman has been named Law Enforcement Officer of the Year twice, a testament to his excellence in duty, courage under pressure, and dedication to the safety and well-being of this community. Whereas Lieutenant Whitman has been recognized as a crisis intervention team captain, exemplifying compassion and skill in de-escalating complex situations. Whereas his deep commitment to public service extended beyond the badge, earning him the distinguished title of Citizen of the Year, reflecting his positive attitude and impact on the lives of countless residents and his role as a pillar of the community. Whereas in recognition of his lifetime service and exceptional contributions to the state, Lieutenant Whitman has been awarded the Order of the Long Pine, one of North Carolina's highest. Now therefore I, Max Rainer, Mayor, on behalf of the town of Benson and this police department, do hereby recognize and extend our profound gratitude and deepest respect to Lieutenant Gary Whitman for the occasion of his retirement. Be it further resolved that we honor his extraordinary legacy of leadership, service, and compassion, and wish him continued joy, fulfillment, and good health in the years ahead. Adopted this 22nd day of May, 2025.
Now, Officer Whitaker. Officer Whitman, and I know you're not just gonna stand there and accept that, and not say anything. It's many years you've given to this town. Let me hear it.
I'm a doer instead of a talker. Appreciate the award. Appreciate the town being good to me for many years as I've been here. Mostly I can come back and work part-time with them. That's gonna be approved. And, but I'm thinking about some new things for me in the future. Got 3 grandkids and gotta spend some time with them. They're getting older now. And no small kids no more. But I appreciate y'all being here. And I appreciate the town board recognizing me. Yes, sir. I'll hold you to it.
Next in public comment is individuals wishing to address the board as name and address for the record. Do we have anyone who'd like to address the board? See you anybody come up over. The next thing on the agenda is to receive public input on the 2025-26 fiscal year budget and fee schedule. Do we have anyone who wants to come forward?
Do you want me to say anything, or? Okay, I was just gonna say, we have had the budget posted in our office since last Tuesday. It was ran in the paper. We've had, I have had one citizen contact me, but she actually did it Tuesday before the board meeting last week, and I sent it to her. She's had no comments. And so we've not had anybody come to the office to discuss anything or have any issues. So we can open it to public comment. We can talk about it in the old business. We just have to do the public comment, so open it up.
Next is RC 2025-01.
You need to open it up for a public hearing on the budget, just to satisfy the statute, just to go through that.
Yeah, just to go through the motion.
Yeah.
I'd like to open it up for public comment. Anyone want to come and have public comment?
Regarding the budget.
You used to ask 3 times. Anyone like to come for public comment? Okay, hearing none.
Close public hearing. Yeah.
Public hearing. Now, Tanner, come forward with RC 2025-01.
Hello. I was hoping someone would speak so I wouldn't have to follow that emotional speech, but we'll see. So, this is not the right one. All right, here we go. The applicant has proposed to rezone the property at the intersection of Tar Heel Road and NC Highway 50 North to B3 Highway Business. The current property owner is DCC Properties LLC. The applicant is Blake Denning. The total current acreage is 8.22 acres and is zoned B2 Neighborhood Business. The subject property is within the ETJ of the town of Benson. The surrounding area is zoned RA, the equivalent of R30. The comprehensive land use plan designates this area as low-density residential, and the proposal to rezone to B3 highway business is not consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. At their last meeting, the planning board voted unanimously that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the rezoning request. Examples of uses that are permitted in the B3 zoning district that are not allowed in the B2 zoning district include hospitals, technical trade businesses, contractors' offices, hotels, television studios, and vehicular sales. The board should consider the listed criteria for approval, as well as the recommendation of the planning board. If voting to approve the rezoning while simultaneously voting that the request is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, language should be added to the motion to include the reasoning for not aligning with the comprehensive plan. Let me know if you have any questions.
So now you'll open it for.
Yeah, now you'd open the public hearing. If there's no question of the board at this time, open that up for public hearing. Anyone for first generally is how you.
Okay, we'll now open it up for public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak for it, please come forward.
Hey, my name is Blake Denning, P.O. Box 338, Benson, North Carolina. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the rezone. Just to kind of give you a little bit of background, property was rezoned a few years ago for B2. The original intent was for it to be mini storages. Had no bought with the neighbors, and now we are going to go for B3 just because we have an equipment dealership that is wanting to relocate from Andrew to Benson. During the original public meeting, no one showed up and no one had any questions, and well, excuse me, I had one person show up and talk to me about it, and Mr. Honeycutt, and we discussed it, and he had no problems with it. And then, during the planning board, no one showed up to contest it, so. If you have any questions, I'd love to be here to answer.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to come and speak in favor of approving this rezone? Okay, now, would anyone like to come and speak in opposition to approving this rezone? Anyone like to come and speak in opposition? In opposition? Okay, that closes
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
now we just can discuss.
You discuss it, ask any other questions you may have of staff or the applicant, or the only parties here on this one, and then make a determination once you've discussed it.
I went to the planning board meeting, and it was just like Blake said, nobody showed up against it, and went and looked at the property. I don't see any reason why we should deny it. I'd make a motion at this time unless there's any other discussion to approve the RZ 202501 at the corner of Tar Hill Road and Highway 50 to rezone the parcel for neighborhood business B2 to Highway B3. I move to affirm the rezoning request is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan.
Well done.
If there are two separate motions. So one is, do you feel like this is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan? And then a motion to either rezone it anyway or not. And then the note at the bottom there is that if you do feel it is not consistent with the land use plan, you do have to add some type of language to your motion, at least acknowledging why you believe the rezoning is appropriate anyways.
Why didn't you do that?
I think maybe if you're seeking to make a motion to grant the rezoning.
Make a
then-
motion to grant number one.
You gotta read it.
I've already.
He's already read it.
He's already ready.
It's fine.
You
He
just
wants
do- You're amending your motion to take the second part of that away with the affirmation
Yeah.
language.
Okay,
That,
I amend my motion.
But he still has to, he still is gonna have to make a motion.
oh,
Okay, you're doing this one
right,
first.
two steps.
Okay, so on the first paragraph. All in favor? Opposed? That is approved. Okay.
Now, second part.
Now, I move is this the second part?
Yes.
Okay. I move to affirm that the rezoning request is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan.
You need to make a motion to amend the land use plan to make it consistent.
There you go.
Because it's not
Okay.
consistent as it's written, so we've got to make a motion to amend it.
Okay,
And
I
what-
made that
and-
motion to amend it.
Does that work?
Does that work? Make a motion to amend it, okay.
You are entitled to vote to affirm that it is consistent with the land use plan, even though staff does not think that it is, because that's your right as commissioners. If you were to say that it is not consistent, in your opinions, then you would use an example for, like I put at the bottom there, that it's reasonable or in the public interest because of, for example, its proximity to a major road or something like that.
You may take this one.
You may do it for
You
you.
may do it for me.
Hand that.
Do it, William.
I make the motion that the request is reasonable and in the best public interest, and to amend the land use plan to allow this change from B2 to B3.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Have a motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries as well. Next, SUP 2025-05.
Swear him in.
Blake too?
Yeah, you
Do 'em both.
swearing them in?
Okay.
Nah, both mine's at the front.
Okay, all right, so, I guess y'all both can do it at the same time. Just raise your right hand. Do you
Yeah.
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then when you get up there, Blake, just state your name and address.
Yeah, so I'll just really briefly remind the board that this, although it is the same applicant, and we just approved a legislative decision on a rezoning. This is different. This is not only a different property, but this is also a quasi-judicial court-like proceeding where you have to base your decision on, let me just read the standard for the competent material and relevant evidence in the record, which in other words mean the witnesses must be sworn, and you have to only consider what you hear tonight or what is submitted to you tonight in the form of evidence at this hearing. I don't know if are there any parties either for or against that would intend to provide any evidence or testify on this matter that would claim to have standing, any kind of special damages? Anybody here else on this matter at all? Okay, so we really need to get into that. So you're going to hear from the plan director, and we'll give you his presentation. Then we'll have the applicant come up. He'll present whatever evidence and testimony he wants to present. Any opposition parties can cross-examine witnesses. I'll guide proceedings as they go from there, but then from here I'll leave it to Mr. O'Quinn.
Hello again.
Well, I'm sorry. I've lied to you. I'm about to leave it to you. I do need to call for any, for disclosure of any bias, any conflicts of interest, any ex parte out of these proceedings, communications with any party as to this quasi-judicial matter, this special use permit, isn't it? Has anyone had any outside communications or any bias, any conflicts of interest about this? Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you for that. All right, the applicant has proposed a special use permit for 6 townhomes on South Ryle Street. The current property is owned by Seamont Properties of Dunn LLC. The applicant is Mr. Blake Denning. The total current acreage is .57 more or less acres and is currently zoned a mix of R6 and R11. The project is located within the municipal limits of the town of Benson. The surrounding neighborhood is predominantly single-family residential. No rezoning request is being proposed with this special use permit application, but the comprehensive plan designates this area as medium-density residential, which is compatible with townhome development. There are several standards associated with developing townhomes, including parking spaces, boundary buffers, sign permits, etc. The scope and scale of the associated improvements will be determined during the technical review committee meeting. The board should use the findings of fact to make the determinations, as well as the recommendation from the planning board. At their last meeting, the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of this project to the Board of Commissioners. Let me know if you have any questions.
If there are no questions, first, could we have anyone who wants to come speak in favor?
Again, Blake Denning, PO Box 338, Benson, North Carolina. This is kind of formality at this point. I think all this stuff's already been discussed before. Basically, there's already a 4-unit townhome going up on Blackman Street, and this is going to be a very like kind. Exact same floor plan, just different colors. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Let me ask a question while you're considering yours. Mr. Denning, would you testify, since you've been sworn, that you have met all 4 findings of fact that the planning directors communicated to the board? Can you bring those back up? They're in the staff report.
They're right there. They're there. Can you read that one?
Come around. You can come around.
Yeah, you already know it.
And while you're also considering that, we should have, my fault, I apologize. I would suggest you go ahead and make a motion, if you see fit to do so, to to enter the staff report and all the supporting documentation that the plan directors submitted to you, and then your board packet into the record.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Evans made a motion, all in favor? Anything else? Now, anyone who wants to speak in opposition to this request? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition? Anyone? Closes this portion of the hearing. Now, discussion.
Discussion's next, and you can still bring any party up and ask questions, including the plan director, if you did have any.
I see this just as an extension of the project's already been started. I'm ready to make a motion unless y'all have any discussion. All right, I make a motion to approve the request for a special use permit to construct 6 townhome units within one parcel ID on South Rouse Street pursuant to SUP 2025-05.
There's a motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Last is, SUP 2025-06.
Same drill here while Mr. O'Quinn's getting up. Quasi judicial. I'll just go straight to the call for any bias, ex parte communication, or conflicts of interest. Very good.
Thank you very much. The applicant has proposed a special use permit for a mobile home to be placed at 896A Tar Heel Road. The current property is owned by Amelia Massengill, who is also the applicant. The total current acreage is 1.72 plus or minus acres and is currently zoned RA, which is the equivalent of R30 zoning. The subject property is located within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the town of Benson. The surrounding area is predominantly other single-family homes. No rezoning request is being proposed with this special use permit, but the comprehensive plan does call for mixed-use junction. If a special use permit is granted, all work done must be in accordance with local and state regulations. There is a small discrepancy between the GIS information in the packet and the actual plat information that I've put here. The board should use the findings of fact to make their determinations, as well as the recommendation from the planning board. At their last meeting, the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of this project to the Board of Commissioners. Please let me know if you have any questions.
What's the discrepancy? Is that access?
Sure. So
I can't read that either.
yeah, it will, and it's an old plat too.
Right.
You can see kind of right here that it is a flag lot basically,
Okay,
and then
so it does have access to Tar Heel Road.
but then here it shows that that portion actually all belongs to this piece of property. Just a discrepancy.
When you say flag property, what does that mean?
It means that there's a small portion that connects to the public street and then gets wider as it goes further away from the right of way.
It's like a flag.
Like a pole, like a
So
flag pole.
literally
Pole
it's-
and a flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd like to hear anyone who wants to speak in favor of this request.
While she's coming up, if you see fit, I would ask for you to make a motion to enter all of the materials from the planning board, the application, et cetera, into the record.
I make a motion that we enter all findings.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? State your name and address for the record. Okay.
I'm Amelia Massengill. I live at 210 South Smith Street in Clayton, North Carolina. This property I've owned for a number of years. There was a mobile home there originally. My dad encouraged me to buy it. When the gentleman that had lived there for years passed away, I had the mobile home torn down. So it's been vacant for a really long time. I can't even tell you exactly how many years. But I have the opportunity to help a family that has bought a mobile home and they'd like to rent the lot. And so that's why we are asking for this special use permit. Like I said, I know that it has been vacant for a long time. So if the special use permit is granted, we're prepared to we'll follow all the rules and regulations of the county and the town. But I know that they're, because there's a septic tank and a well and all that, I've lined up folks to come and do what we need to do if this is granted. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Anyone?
Thank you.
Anyone else like to come and speak in favor of? Now, would anyone like to come and speak in opposition?
She needs to be sworn. Go ahead and swear her in.
Do you have anything for me?
I
before
do.
start?
So
Okay.
tell me your name first.
Tia Matthews, 896B, so I'm the parcel behind this one.
Okay, Ms. Matthews, you say you own the parcel behind it, right? So would you contend, therefore, since you have adjoining property, that you would have standing? That's a legal theory or a legal definition, essentially, that you would suffer special damages based on what the board would approve or disapprove of the proposed measure, and therefore that gives you sort of a special status where you can cross-examine and ask questions of like the planning director or the applicant or any other party that offers evidence. Generally, someone who has adjoining properties adjoining.
Yes.
So generally, you would consider them to have standing? Is that your contention for the board?
Yes.
Right. So if the board has no objections, then I would tender to you as your attorney that she likely does have standing. So with no objections, then she could proceed as a party with standing and make cross-examinations and offer evidence.
Do you want my evidence before I start?
Your presentation is totally up to you.
I have a copy, two copies, so one for the board and one for you. or
You
one
should,
for the
not
clerk?
necessarily me, but you should definitely provide one to the applicant too, because she's a party.
Okay. Should I give this to Angie or you?
Yeah, hand it to the clerk and she'll disseminate it out.
This one copy, it has, I think 5, A through F. So my property actually has an easement through this property to access my property. I have 2 easements. I've been there for about 3 years. No one has maintained the property. No one has maintained the driveway of the property. In the attachments of the evidence that I've provided you, the first attachment A is a copy of their septic and well permit from 1987. And it shows the location of the septic and the leach lines being on the side closer to 40. In attachment B, it shows an aerial photo from when there was a trailer there last and where they were driving around the trailer home. You can see the tire track marks, and they were driving on top of the septic tank and the leach line areas for several years. And it dates back probably more than 15 years that they were doing that. I only provided like the most recent aerial photo, but it does go back. I'm going to skip C and D for this second to go to E and F, but attachment E is an email from a septic provider that can confirm that driving on the septic and leach lines will damage it, and they provided us with attachment F, which is the septic system owner's guide. On page 5 of that guide, there's an arrow that points to the notation, but it says do not drive vehicles over the system. This being said, we know that the system is broken. It was leaking when the last home was there, and the property owner failed to fix it. Miss Victoria is here, which is the neighbor that has the flag part of the lot. She has our second easement. She was the one being directly endangered by the septic waste being delivered straight to her front door. In addition to all of this, I am a prior planning employee of the Benson Planning Department, and I am a certified zoning officer. I was here during the time that we did our comprehensive land use plan and our future land use map, and majority of the people involved in the process were against the mobile homes coming in. The future land use map shows mixed-use junction for our property. Attachment C that I've provided you gives you the definition of mixed-use junction. I'm not going to read the whole thing because you probably know what it says, but the preferred uses of this area is commercial services and retail facilities, restaurants, offices, and multi-family development. When I did a search of the comprehensive land use plan, attachment D, you'll see there's 2 descriptions there of different districts, and the low-density residential district is the only district in our comprehensive land use plan that mentions mobile homes. So I do not agree that it is recommend that the application is in accordance with our land use plan and like our land use map and our comprehensive land use plan. I do have confirmation as well that code enforcement is only done in the ETJ on a complaint basis. And since we are off the road and you can't see us from the road, there won't be any enforcement that happens. The property, the trailer that was there prior actually had the roof cave in, and it was owned by Amelia, and the people were living in it shortly before the roof caved in. So she was not maintaining the home or the property. And when she was addressed by Miss Victoria about the septic leak, she refused to fix it. The county will not check the functionality of the septic tank when they do these permits. So if a home goes there, it will be hooked up based on minor checks, and then it will have to be used for an extensive amount of time before we'll know that the leaks and damages are going to be coming out of the ground where the leach lines and stuff have been damaged. I'm the only one that's using the property for access right now. So I've done all the grass maintenance on this property, all the tree trimming off the driveway. No one has been out there in over 3 years to maintain this property. I don't have anything further. Do you have any questions for me?
Ms. Massengill, right, the applicant? You're, come on up. So, you're the applicant and property owner. Obviously, you have standing as well. You're a party. So if you would like, you can cross-examine. I know that sounds like some sort of court show or something. It is, I guess. But what it basically means is you can ask Ms. Matthews questions, getting into the subject matter of what she's testified to just now. So if you want to, that's your prerogative, but you have that right.
I don't know that I have any questions, but I will say that, or maybe one question is, have I asked you to maintain the property?
No, I wasn't asked to maintain the property, but I have to because the limbs come over the driveway. I have to take care of them to keep our vehicles from getting hit. I do the same thing on the easement that Miss Victoria has from us from the road up. The driveway has to be maintained. People drive on it. It's a natural part of the process. And in the country, we are prone to snakes and things, and I don't want them in my yard.
The other thing is the driveway is, it's toward the middle of the property if you look, and I think the limbs are closer to her property. I could be wrong. I will just say that if Miss Victoria reached out to me, I have no recollection of that. The reason that mobile home was demolished is because it was old, so.
You'll have a chance to provide more
Okay.
testimony, but what we need to do right now is just to think about everything she testified to, if you want to ask her questions, to get into more substance on any of that.
I don't. Okay.
We're trying to get the cart before the horse there, and I know the board will have an opportunity to ask their questions when we get to that stage, but do you, Ms. Matthews, have any questions for Ms. Massengill? Because she got up and spoke, and you are party, so. That does it. I'm sorry to be so formalistic. It's I know it's kind of awkward, so. Are there any other parties that would claim to have standing, as I've hopefully in some coherent fashion explained? If you have, you would suffer some sort of special damage. If you would claim to have standing, we need to get you up here and delve into that issue, and then let the board make a determination on that.
My name is Victoria Pulsini, and I've lived at the residence for going on 31 years. I did contact Ms. Gale years ago about the septic leaking down on my property. I had to put up a ramp to walk into my house without walking in the sewer. I had to run a ditch line to try to turn it away from the front of my yard. And she did absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, I tried calling her several times afterwards, and she never answered the phone. Recently, my neighbors have been taking care of the property up there, mowing it, and also snakes wouldn't come down. Well, when we had our first meeting back in April, Ms. Massengale and the people that want to move in there said they would maintain the lawns up there. The grass is still growing. No one has touched it. I have had my lawn has been mowed twice and going on the third mowing, and theirs hasn't been. So therefore, it shows to me, again, Ms. Massengale is not a person of her word. If they put a home in there now, there's no rules or regulations saying that they have to redo the septic system and all that, and I'm sure that with it leaking years ago and all the time that's gone through now, it's in a worse condition than it was years ago. Therefore, I object to them moving a mobile home in there for the simple reason I don't want sewer in my front yard. And I don't think there's anybody on this board that would like to have sewer running in their front yard and have to walk through it to go into their home. And that's all I've got to say.
Ma'am, Ms. Pulsini, is Pulsini, right?
Yes.
So, does anybody have an objection, any of the other parties that have so far testified, or any other party that would want to later, that Ms. Pulsini has standing? She owns the property adjacent to the south, it appears. Again, as we've discussed already, an adjacent property owner is generally going to have standing to be a party, present evidence, more than just testimony. So if there's no objection to that, any objection? I know that was all you had, and I respect that. The opposing party to you, the applicant, Ms. Massengill, does have a right to cross-examine you if she chooses. I'm missing her in the crowd. Okay. Do you want to ask any questions or cross-examine? Okay. Okay. Sorry. That's okay.
I also have animals. I have a pond on my property. I have a well, and all this stuff is going into all these things. When I moved there, there was catfish in the pond. They all died because of all this sewer coming down in my yard.
Ms. Massengill, again, I know it's formalistic, but any questions you want to ask? Okay. You'll get another chance to put on more evidence, if you choose.
Anyone else like to come and speak in opposition?
Well, now, so it's kind of like court, like I said to begin with. So, Ms. Massengill, do you want to come up and have for any redirect evidence, any other additional testimony in response to what the opposing parties with standing have presented?
Just, I guess, a little more information. When we had the special use hearing, community hearing, I did say that I am more than happy to take care of the property, cutting the grass, doing those things. I was waiting for the special use permit. I didn't know that I would be, you know, I don't know, in trouble for not cutting the grass twice. But just assure you that I've already looked into a new septic. It's going to be $8,000. I have someone coming out on Sunday. We were just waiting for this process and then following whatever the county expectations were. So that's all I have.
One moment. Any other two parties withstanding, you two ladies have any questions you want to ask her based on what she just testified? Is there anybody else that wants to provide any testimony, whether you have standing or not, on this matter? I think you can conclude this portion, and then the board can get into making inquiries if you want to call any party back up and ask questions. That's certainly appropriate before you get into a deliberation where, generally speaking, it's your public hearing, but generally speaking, once you get past the question asking phase, then you're just in deliberation.
Okay, guys. Do they want to bring anybody back?
I got a question for the property owner. So by what you just said, that you're gonna be putting in a brand new septic system?
That's my intention, yes.
Okay. That's all I got.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Did the lady say it would be a rental property or family would live there? Yeah.
Rental.
Rental. Rental, okay.
The family owns the mobile home, they'll rent the lot.
Did you hear that, Mr. Danny? She said the family owns the mobile home and rents the lot. Does any of the parties, I see a plat here, I guess, that was updated, and I might ask the planner if, and maybe I'm missing, I'm not an attorney by any means, that's Ike's job, but is there anything that defines the easement that you have across the property on any kind of plat? Because I don't see that.
Yeah, this is not the most recent, from the one, my property was, the plat was done in, I think, 1995 or 6, somewhere around there.
Huh.
And it shows an easement through her property, and then another easement through his property.
Just out of curiosity, because it looks like on the pictures that I see, and it may be different, is the picture correct where the driveway is? Does it snake through the property like that? And is the easement snake through the property like that as well? Or is it a straight? Is it-
GIS looks
On
like it moves.
here, you can see, this is Miss Victoria's property, there's two driveways on this straight piece. So her driveway to her home, our driveway up to here. At this curve is where the trees have had to be trimmed several times, as well as the trees on this hill and the trees here. The driveway does split this property. The easement is technically here, but it was not, I don't think it was reported correctly because this driveway has been here for 30 years. So there's an easement here, but it can't be put in place with all the trees and things there. And then this back area, which is the tiniest part of the lot, is where they're trying to put the mobile home, and there's already a septic and a well there. We can't locate the well from the knowledge we've been given, but the septic would likely have to go on this side, and then they would
Matthews, I didn't ask you this when you're up here, it's totally your prerogative, but do you want to ask the board to consider entering into the record what you submitted for them to review?
Yes, please.
That's the board's prerogative if you want to make that motion. It's not required. She submitted something, you want to enter it into the record, then one of you should make a motion.
Do you need me up here for that?
No.
Okay.
Let me ask the question, because I'm totally confused on that. If she were to take care of the septic tank and everything that she's talking about putting in, would you be satisfied with that, or what?
I'm concerned that my property value will be diminished by this trailer being there because I have to drive past it every day and see it in my front yard. I don't have proof to show that because you won't know until something goes there because if the property value was diminished. I don't believe that she's going to do the things that are necessary to take care of it based on prior existence of other homes that were there.
I'm just bringing you back up to talk to
Okay.
the microphone.
Did that answer your question? I don't think the septic's the only concern, but it's the most major concern with the environment endangerment. Miss Victoria Downhill has a creek that runs through her property as well as a wetland that is down there. It has flooded in the past. So if there is septic that would seep, it would get into that, and the Department of Environmental Quality will be involved in consequences or repairment of that, and every property touching that creek will be endangered with those toxicities coming from the septic tank. I don't know how where the new septic could go. Obviously, that's a process they have to go through with the county to get it, see if it can perk, see if it can even do any of that, where it would fit. They have to have a repair area, and I'm not sure how that would all connect back to the backside where the driveway cuts off the property pretty much in half at an angle. But I just dumped $2,000 into maintaining the driveway, and I don't have more money to put into it or the money to relocate in it by any means either.
Thank you.
In the interest of the substantial due process, that's fair and fine testimony, but I think you need to give Ms. Massey an opportunity to respond to that, even though we are kind of at the board question phase. That's just to get everybody a fair shake. If you can't tell, that's what we're doing. One party talks, the other gets to respond.
We'll say the property is just under 2 acres, and I'm new to this process, as you can tell, but if we need to relocate and do a new site plan so that we can do that, and then even put in a driveway that goes along the easement, we'll do what is fair, because at the end of the day, I do want to be a good neighbor.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Is this gonna be a single wide or a double wide?
It's a single wide. Yes, ma'am.
Would you permit me to ask a question? I want to ask Mr. O'Quinn a question when he gets us, when he's finished answering that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry? Mr. O'Quinn, the board's going to let me ask you a question, right? So
okay.
when you testified, I think you can go back to that section, that any development of the property has to, I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, has to comply with all
Local and state regulations.
regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include septic regulations that, I don't know, that would be flowing from the county? And
Yes. So in my experience, in order to pull a building permit, you need your zoning approval, and then you need to prove your water and sewage source. So whether that's well or public water, public sewage, or septic system. In most cases, a septic evaluation is what's done on an existing lot of record that has already had a septic system on it. Otherwise, it's the perk test and that sort of thing. But at the very least, the building inspections department, from my understanding, would require some kind of approval from the Johnston County Environmental Health Department or a North Carolina licensed soil scientist.
Anybody want to ask him, any party, want to ask him any questions about that? That's all I have.
So, can I ask you a question? A legal question?
You can always ask me a question. You pay me.
So I just, the easement's where I'm caught up at, and I just think if they got ready to, I mean, technically, if they went and did a site plan and the county went out there and identified, since the driveway is not located in the easement, technically, the mobile home could be moved over on top of the driveway. Is that not correct legally?
Yeah, probably. If you've got an easement, you got to stay within it. Could be other, and we're not. And remember, this is why I say these things when we start these hearings. When I say we got to base all this on competent, relevant material, substantial evidence that's offered in this hearing tonight. So I won't speculate, and I won't go too far about other possibilities. But to answer your question discreetly as much as I can, and again, based on what we've heard here and what you've presented tonight, if that easement is elsewhere from where the path actually is, then the owner of the property where the path is meandered onto could tell the easement holder, you got to go back into your easement.
So do they have to have the property rezoned, resurveyed to do that?
I don't see why they would. And again, I'm not testifying under oath. I'm just giving you legal advice, so no one can cross-examine me.
I don't understand what about.
No, I'm not saying that because you're not allowed. I'm just saying take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm not sworn in. I'm your legal counsel, so I don't want to offer testimony to you, or even in the form of testimony. You can ask Mr. Quinn that. He's sworn in, but if you ask me as your legal counsel, would you have to resurvey a property to define where an easement is? You might need to have a surveyor go and locate that for you on the ground with flagging or to determine the actual spot.
You see some controversy about where the easement runs as far as where the road is? I mean, she said that, well, if I went over, then I'm gonna have to move some trees.
Mm-hmm.
Whose trees is she gonna have to move if she moves the driveway?
So this plat of record that I've submitted into evidence is from the Johnson County Register of Deeds from GIS as the most recent plat of record for this property, and this particular plat does not show an easement there. If I had perhaps selected their property, it may have shown a different plat. I apologize if that is the case. But in identifying this property on Johnson County GIS, this is the most recent plat of record for this property, and it does not contain an easement.
Mr. O'Quinn, what's the date on that map, if you know? I don't know. Yeah, I can't.
1986.
1986.
It's so small you couldn't read it.
Well, I believe it says 1980. W.R. Lambert, I think it says this 7th day of something, 1986. Ms. Matthews, you don't have, can I ask her a question still?
Yeah.
You don't
We're
have,
still in that phase, absolutely.
you can't provide, I mean, do you have a?
I'm trying to pull it up for you.
Okay, okay. Tanner, do you can, if, say, by some chance the county were to go out there and do that septic evaluation and determine that the trailer could hook onto the existing system, if they had issues with that, then would the environmental not be able to come back and condemn or do something if it was not functioning correctly?
So the Environmental Health Department would test the functionality of the existing septic system and then either grant them an approval if it's up to their standards, or tell them they have to repair the system or install a new system in order to get that environmental health approval.
But I think the concern I hear tonight is if they hook onto the existing system and there was existing problems, if they were to grant them permission to hook onto that existing system, and the neighbors did start seeing problems 2 years down the road, could they not go back to the county for code enforcement and environmental to do something to rectify that?
I believe they would have to go to the environmental health department, because whoever the inspector is for the environmental health department is basically saying, I certify that this is a properly working system. So if that inspector is basically saying at the time of my inspection, this is not going to leak or that sort of thing, and then if leaks happen after that, that might be something that either of them need to bring up with the environmental health department or a soil scientist.
Well, out of curiosity, was that done?
Not yet, because the town doesn't require them to have that done before submitting for special use permit.
When there were problems existing, did you go to the county environmental
I
health?
wasn't a property owner at that time, Miss Victoria.
Ms.
was.
Victoria, did you go to environmental when you were having those issues?
Sorry.
Did you go to Johnston County Environmental Services to complain when you were having sewer issues or septic issues in your front yard?
No, I didn't, because when I approached Miss Massengale, she told me straight out that she didn't own the property, so I'd have to go to somebody else. And I didn't know how about, because I was new in the area, I didn't know how to go about taking and finding out who owned the property or anything. But she told me that she did not own the property.
Any luck?
So this was done for the prior owners that purchased the property, so there's easement here, and then it goes straight up, and this is the property line, and then there's the existing driveway. So they recorded the easement knowing that the driveway wasn't in the correct existing location of the easement.
Can you share that with Ms. Massengale before you show it to the rest of the board?
Yes, sir.
What's the date of that one?
This one, 1995, 8/11/95. It's under my property because it was done at the time that, obviously in this map, it's one big long piece. It was divided at one point. She may have seen it.
Since the people don't live there anymore, I have not had any problem with any sewers coming out of my yard.
If the owner was to be approved and they were to put a trailer and the county required them to do whatever to make sure that would that alleviate your concern?
Put my mind at ease.
Right.
Does anyone else want to see this map?
Bring it back. I didn't get a chance to look at it that quick. My eyes aren't that good.
Ms.
You
Massengale,
can zoom in, couldn't you?
all right, do you have any objection to the board entering that map in as evidence? It purports to be, I'm not seeing it, but it purports to be something recorded with the Johnson County Register of Deeds, a public record. I don't think there's any dispute about that. You want to ask that they enter that into the public record. You're going to have to, the official record, you're going to need to get a copy of that to the clerk since you don't have a hard copy here.
Okay. Can I email it to you? Okay.
This was August the 28th of 95. Are you okay if I pass this
Yeah,
around?
it's fine.
You all
You
want to
can
see,
pinch-
do y'all want to
pinch
see
to
this?
zoom in.
The difference is, this is the easement that she's talking about.
If I read it correctly, I'm not a surveyor either. If I read it correctly, then that right there, that dotted line of that property line is a 30-foot access easement. That's the existing driveway not located.
So what would have to be moved?
I think that's up to the county. I don't.
It's not a requirement to move the driveway, but if she needed to put her home where the driveway is at, she could request the driveway to be relocated onto the easement for my access.
Right.
And then she would need to provide access for her property people.
Right.
As of now, we're hoping that the driveway's in a fine place and she can Location for over 30 years.
Can you actually approve something like this with the agreement that these changes will be made? You can't approve it.
That's not our jurisdiction. Let's discuss that after we get done asking questions. We can't put building codes on something because we're not building inspectors and we're not city inspectors, right? As far as I know. I mean, I may be wrong.
It took the planning board to clarify that approve this, and none of the questions came up.
Did they say the same? Did they have the same testimony?
Same ones that we got. Just didn't go in depth.
You're still in the phase where you're asking questions of the parties or plan director, just, you're seeking, and you've been doing a great job doing it, you're seeking more evidence, more information to be put into this record so that you can make an adequate decision, or make a decision based on that competent, substantial material evidence that you've heard here tonight. But both parties have an opportunity to see it, review it, challenge it, submit it, whatever they get an opportunity to do that. That's the name of the game.
But now they haven't entered any of Tia's stuff into the record as of now.
Correct. They haven't voted, they have not made a motion and voted on that.
Let me ask the planning director, if we say approve this, can we put any stipulations on it? Or is that left up to the county as far as you will put a new septic tank in, you will check the easement on the driveway? At what point, who does that?
You as the board are entitled to approve or deny or approve with conditions. So that is.
We put the conditions in there. I mean, we've got one party says, well, I'm planning on doing that just as soon as I get this done. But if she doesn't do it, what prevents her from doing it? Is this the county's problem or is this their problem?
So if you were to approve with conditions and those conditions weren't met, and are you asking if those conditions weren't met, what would happen if they did it anyways?
That's right.
then that would be a zoning violation. We would have to have our code enforcement officer pursue that as a zoning violation and go through those processes.
You can stop them, in other words. I think that's what you're saying.
Well, if the signal light's already put there and they're hooking up and then a year later she has sewer running in her yard, what has prevented her not to have changed the whole system like she just said? Well, I don't wanna spend the money, I'm gonna do it just as soon as I get, a permit. Does she get the permit from the county comes out and checks her sewer?
I believe that's right.
That's
Mr.
correct.
Quinn.
So the process, if this special use permit were granted, the next step would be to get zoning approval from our planning office, where the applicant would submit a site plan showing us exactly where the driveway is, where the septic system's going, where the house is going, and how far away it is from the property lines. At that point, they would take that approved site plan to environmental health or environmental services to have the land perked or a reevaluation or whatever environmental services determine is best fit for their septic tank. And once they have the approvals from both departments, they're able to apply for the building permit. In this case, it would be a setup permit. But they cannot apply for a building permit until they have the approval from our department to make sure that it fits the setbacks and other regulations, that it has an approved special use permit, and the environmental department, that it has a working septic system, and in this case, I believe it's on well, so they have to also meet certain distance requirements as far as how close those are to each other.
Because they're in the ETJ, our just like we did last month, our requirement is that they get a special use permit to put a mobile home on the property within the ETJ. After we give them the special use permit, we're out of it. They go to the county for the building permit. They go correct to the county.
They still need to get the zoning approval from our department.
Right. They get zoning approval with the special use, but then they go to the county for the building permit, and they'll go to environmental health with the county for a septic inspection or a septic evaluation.
So whatever she tells us tonight, it doesn't mean anything, it means more to the county. That's where she's gonna have to apply for that.
Well, I mean, I think, I'm trying to get in the weeds, and so, right or
Yeah.
wrong, this is just my opinion. I'm looking at this as if this was, my job tonight, in my opinion, y'all may disagree, is, are we gonna give them a special use permit to put a manufactured home on a lot? Whether what's on that lot or what's under that lot or anything about that lot, that's beyond the town of Benson, in my opinion. Whether it's building permit, it's septic permit, all of that, easement issues, that's beyond us to get into weeds, in my opinion.
Well, but that's one of the things that we clarified with Mr. O'Quinn earlier. I agree with you 100%. Beyond the zoning permit, this board and this town doesn't have any other regulatory enforcement action unless there's a violation.
And we're not in the habit of sending our code enforcement officer into the ETJ.
Yeah.
I mean, he does the town limits.
But it's all contingent on
the zoning.
Conformance with all local and state and federal regulations
Yes.
and all of that. So, there is it's not to say once it leaves here, then they can just do what in the world they want, right? They still have to obey all the other rules about septic tanks and leach fields and access and everything else.
Our setback standards, it would have to meet environmental health standards for solid waste disposal, and it would have to meet building code standards for building code for life safety.
Theory, what it looks like to me, and I mean, this is just me talking, y'all chime in and disagree. Looks like we've got a whole row of non-conforming uses that we created when we did this land plan years ago. Because I'm sitting here looking at GIS and I'm counting 1, 2, and I may be wrong, y'all can correct me if I'm right. I'm counting at least 4 mobile homes that are adjacent to these properties. And so when we went there and we did a land use plan and looked at Tar Hill Road and said we want them to be multi-jurisdictional, is that multi-something?
Mixed-use junction.
Mixed-use junction, then all of those mobile homes pretty much are now non-conforming uses, which means if they ever burnt down or something happened, and they went within that 180 days without a trailer there, they've got to come back and ask us the same question on whether or not they can put a house back out there.
So
That's
I meant to make a comment on that earlier. So the comprehensive land use plan is really the town's vision for the future. So if someone is proposing to rezone their property, you're, like we did earlier, you would be voting to determine if it is aligning with the comprehensive land use plan, usually only in rezoning cases. So in this case, it is zoned RA, which is residential agricultural, and R30, which is suburban neighborhood, rural neighborhood, something like that. So the comprehensive land use plan is not meant to be a determining factor in cases like a special use permit. It's more meant to be a guide in how you rezone properties in the future. So 50 years from now, when you made the comprehensive land use plan, 50 years from now, you want that area to eventually be mixed-use junction. Not that it necessarily needs to now, or makes those homes existing nonconformities.
Not everything. There's a couple of stick-built homes, but I think that's the property that Miss Matthews lives in. That's the property that Miss Victoria, Miss Victoria lives in, I think. And then that's the parcel in between. That's manufactured. I can't tell about that one.
As of right now, both the properties bordering the vacant lot, only 2 are manufactured homes. The rest are not.
But right. The only reason but you have 2 that border your property in front of you, correct? Between you and Tar Heel Road?
Towards the back end.
Towards the back end.
Yeah, they're single wides, and
Okay.
they are not maintained either because code enforcement isn't done out there.
Right.
So we're in discussion phase now, right?
Well, that's the pleasure of the board. If you want to transition to that phase, if there's no more questions for any parties, we've been pretty liberal about everyone testifying, and that's by design. If anybody has anything else that they want to present or any questions, again, there's 3 parties withstanding. If you have questions you want to ask, cross-examination. The board, of course, has any more questions. If you're past that point, then you're moving into your deliberation phase. But I will say, there's no reason to stand on form over substance. If you want to go back and ask questions, you're not gonna trip up some tremendous illegality here.
Discuss that.
While you're deliberating, I would just say to remind the board that this is like court, and you're supposed to consider everything the evidence you've heard tonight, the competent, material, substantial evidence. Opinions are not as important. Opinions about things that I think this is bad or I think this is good is not the substance, that substantial evidence. That's not what you're really to base your opinions on. It's hard, stone cold facts that have been presented to you that, again, somebody could testify that something about the septic, for instance. They've testified to that. They have property out there. You can weigh that evidence with whatever measurement you want, but it is a testified to fact. So that's not necessarily an opinion. That's substantial testimony. So when you're weighing this out, it's hard to know the difference in opinion and a testified fact. But try to base your decision on what was an assertion of truth, not so much an opinion on what might be or what someone thinks about something.
If I am granted an access easement from an adjacent property owner, right, to access a property of mine, whose responsibility does the maintaining of that easement fall on? Does it fall, it falls on me, not on
You-
the current property owner?
Yeah, the
easement
dominant
holder.
tract easement holder has the duty to maintain their easement, absent some other type of agreement or stipulation among the parties, or if it's non-exclusive, 4 or 5 parties say could have have a joint use access, then they all would have that same responsibility. But the servient tract, the tract that the easement goes across, that property owner does not have a duty to maintain the other guy's easement.
But there's still some question about the easement, right?
What we've been presented was a 30-foot easement that runs along that tree line on the front of the property. That's what we've got to go by, right?
That was offered. I don't think anybody ever made a motion to put that in the record, but
Right.
it was submitted to you. There's no objection on that. You considered it. I think given that that is a public record with the Johnson County Register of Deeds, and it appears to be, I'm satisfied that it is, sitting here. I could
So
be
we should
wrong,
make
but
a motion to
I
put
think
that.
you should enter that into the record, and then you consider again, one of the parties in opposition, Ms. Matthews, has asked that her information, which appears to be the GIS rendering, well as septic permit, and then some information that she's compiled, if you want to consider putting that into the record as well. Again, all of that is up to you, but you've considered these things, so better to have them in the record if you're in doubt.
I make a motion that we enter in all of Ms. Matthews' documentation and the additional plat that she showed us into the
Plat.
record.
We have a motion on the floor to enter the information that's been presented to us. All in favor? Opposed?
Can I get that back? I want to look at one more thing.
Absolutely.
You don't have to carry it.
No, you don't have to
Pass
carry
it
it.
around.
Just
I'll-
pass it,
I'll
pass
come
it.
and get it.
You'll get there quicker that way. You're not leaving me over there.
And if they get the easement, they said that the easement that shows on the plat is in trees, correct?
Correct.
So it would be the easement owner's responsibility for clearing out the trees, put the driveway back. Is that correct?
I don't, there could be other facts that,
Back to the correct spot.
Yeah.
there could be other facts that we haven't been that have not been submitted for your consideration tonight that might change my response to that question. But generally speaking, yes, if I've got an easement and I've let it grow up, or I've been going a different way or whatever, now I wanna start making use of it again, I've gotta go in there and clear that out.
The person that's using it, not the person.
Person that uses it, right. If you think that's who it benefits, if I give you an easement across my land, that benefits you. My tract's called the servient tract. I'm subject to it, right? I have to allow you to come and go on my property, but I don't have a responsibility to maintain it unless I sign something agreeing to that. And there's nothing submitted that, we have what we have. Again, it's really important that we only consider what's been submitted for your consideration here tonight.
And so, when they were talking about they cut the grass and cleaned the easement, so that we
That was what?
Yes.
they cut the grass and they had made sure something anyway.
If they were the easement holder testifying that, yes.
If it was within the easement.
If it was within the easement.
But there's not any inherent responsibility for an owner to maintain their property to a certain level, right? So,
Well, the code enforcement officer would disagree with that, I guess, but no.
well, if you're in the city limits, that's
Right,
different. But I
right.
mean, in the ETJ, do they follow under the same? Do they follow under our same codes?
I don't think police power is enforced out there. I think there are certain, police
Does our
power
code
ordinances
enforcement
we
extend
do
to the
enforce.
ETJ?
So all zoning rules also apply to the ETJ.
Right.
So if they were to, so code enforcement rules are different, but anything in the Unified Development Ordinance also applies
With grass
to the
height,
ETJ.
with grass height.
That's code, that is town code.
That's
so
town
that
ordinance. That does not go to the
apply
ETJ, right?
ETJ. But something like a special use permit in RA does apply to the ETJ as well as municipal.
I'll elaborate, it's perfectly answered by Mr. O'Quinn, and I'll elaborate just one, because he said it right, and I'll just stand on his shoulders and say, the question is whether or not it's a police power ordinance, like nuisance abatement, right? So, for instance, like maybe cutting your grass, something like that. Tall grass is if we go and summarily abate that nuisance, that's under our police power because it's a safety issue or health issue, ostensibly, as opposed to, like, say, minimum housing, right, which is not police power, nuisance abatement. That is a zoning regulation. That is a planning and zoning regulation that's enforced. So, and those things can really overlap and seem the same, but one applies, the zoning-related matters apply in the ETJ. The police power ones do not. If that answers your question or helps in any way.
If we're just, I think my concern is this, and so, and again, I think we've got to decide mobile home or not, but, well, if we weren't talking about a mobile home and we were looking at other uses, then we wouldn't be even here for a special use permit. If she decided to build a house in the middle of that lot and it's already RA 30, she wouldn't need the special use permit. She would go and pull a building permit, and then she would go and get a septic permit, and then move forward with a regular standard built home. Is that correct? The only reason she's here is because she's asking to put a mobile home there. Again, doing that, she needs the special use permit approval and zoning approval from us, but after that, she's got to go through the same process that she would have to go to build a stick-built house, right? And if we said that, which wouldn't even come to us. So at any day, she could build, she could go out there and build a 900 square foot stick-built mobile home if she wanted to and put it there, and we wouldn't even be looking at this process, right?
Stick-built.
Yeah, stick-built, yeah, right. That's what my first house was a 900 foot block house, 900 square foot. But I think that's where I'm hooked up on. I'm trying to stay at the 10,000 foot level and just saying, hey, I think us as a board, we have to decide, are we going to allow a mobile home there? My personal feelings is, looking at the number of mobile homes that surround that area, there's no reason to say to deny allowing a mobile home to go there. I mean, that's my personal feelings, but I don't know where the other five of y'all stand.
When there's a lot of information to try to digest and make a decision, I will say I think it's helpful, and this board has in the past endeavored to work through these step by step through the findings of fact. So when you get to that point, maybe work. I think I would strongly suggest that when you come to the point tonight of making a motion one way or the other, that you do so on each individual criterion, and then a final motion to approve or deny based on how you vote on each one of those four.
So, Attorney, our decision really is not even based on the easement situation. It's really based on findings of fact, right? Nothing dealing with the easement, basically the mobile home request being made.
Well, I think the easement's important. I guess easements are important. In general, if they didn't have access, then Mr. O'Quinn would, in reviewing it, would say, well, if you don't have access, then I can't, recommend approval of something if you can't get to it, if you can see that. But he's not required nor empowered to do title work or confirm anything. That's what somebody pays a lawyer for. So the location of easements and all of that, as it impacts the property, like where you could put a mobile home or any home, where you could put any structure, where you could put a septic field and all of that. You're not being asked to consider, I guess, whether or not it's fit for that purpose. It's whether or not it's okay to put a mobile home on that lot. If they can, within the bounds of the other regulations, like Mr. O'Quinn testified, they'll have to come back and get zoning approval, and they'll have to show him where they're going to put it. And if it's smack dab in the middle of an easement, or the septic line is over the property line, and they don't have some sort of encroachment agreement with the neighbor, then he would say, well, I can't approve this, right? You can't put what you're proposing, even though notwithstanding the board said you have a special use permit to stick it there if you'd like, you can't effectively do so. So there's still stipulations. Does that answer your question? You're just being asked of whether or not a mobile home should be allowed here. Going through these findings of fact, would a mobile home materially endanger the public health? Would a mobile home, does a mobile home meet all required specification, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, but would a mobile home have no problem with it? But it says, in fact finding, does it propose a health problem? Well, it would right now if you had septic running out to a neighbor's or into a well.
Absolutely,
Correct.
that's against the law,
Correct.
right, and for good reason.
And that's the only problem I have. I have no problem with them because it's just like William said. The whole area is full of mobile homes. So we're not really doing anything different. But this particular site, it's been a problem, or it is a problem, and I'm not sure if they came up and signed a contract stating that that yes, they were going to replace all of this and it was going to be kept up. That would make a difference, but they don't have to do that to us.
No, they don't.
No, but as Mr. Quinn testified, and get up here and correct me if I'm wrong, but in granting a special use permit, and I've pulled up that section of the UDO, after a public hearing and formally considering the application, the town may approve with conditions, or deny a special use permit. So if you have if you want to consider it, I'm always very hesitant or reluctant to even make the appearance of putting any kind of words in anyone's mouth or anything like that, but it's giving you legal counsel if you want to consider doing that to make a stipulation or condition that, again, I think that's already inherently in the application and what you have from the plan director, but to make a stipulation that it has to be approved by, I guess, the county environmental, help me, Tanner.
Environmental health.
Environmental health.
But it's going to have to do that anyway.
Right. I mean, but if that's if you want to make that an express condition, not so much that they have to put in a new septic system, but the septic system has to be functional and approved by the county environmental health, which is, I think, the law anyway. But if you want to make that a condition, that's something to consider.
We usually try to do what the planning board goes with, but I was sitting in on the planning board meeting and this particular thing lasted 5 minutes. We didn't see some of this information, maybe she didn't have it at the time, and we didn't hear everything as far as what we're hearing tonight, because I've got questions in it now, and the planning board sat there and they approved it.
I mean, I think what you're asking for is something that the owner's going to be required to do anyway, and that's go to environmental health and have that septic evaluation.
The owner or
The
the
applicant for the house, the owner of the
Okay.
home. The owner of the home will have to get that approval before they can set that mobile home. That's a requirement.
Well, if that's the case, then I mean, that's their department.
That's right. I mean,
That's
that's the
not
way I
ours.
feel. I mean, it's just
That's not them.
I mean, that's I would hate to put any kind of stipulation on a property owner that they have to do an extra expense that may not be needed after that evaluation. But again, and I'm just going to reiterate, in my opinion, if they were building a stick-built home, they wouldn't even be here, and they would just go to the county and get the septic evaluation, right? And that's the way I look at it. So I think our decision.
Manufactured home, they don't have to get a septic application.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Anytime you
special
put any
use
kind of
permits.
dwelling, you have to have a septic evaluation. And so, but I think the answer for us is, are we gonna allow a mobile home? Or is she gonna go back to an owner and build a 900 square foot house, if that's what they wanna do, to put a house there? You know, either way, the easement argument, I think everybody's identified the driveway has been there for a long time, but it's not located in the easement on the plat that I was given. But that's a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute if somebody puts a building in front of that blocks a driveway that's been there for 30 years. That's not something for us to consider either, right?
It was testified to, you can consider what you think germane, but I would say, in response to that, yes, in the sense that if there's some issue with the title, the marketability of the access, some flaw or issue with that, either latent, that like a path that's meandered itself away from the original easement or never was there to begin with, so anything like that. The town doesn't adjudicate things like that. And that's surprising. I'm sure the planning department feels those calls a lot, but that's not, that's an issue if between neighbors, private causes of action, if there's a problem. I'm speaking very generally here now. So if I am driving outside of my easement, my neighbor doesn't like that, or the guy who I'm driving over his property doesn't like that, he can't call us, and we don't have any power to do anything about that. So considering the application tonight, bear that in mind, in terms of the easement issue. I mean, the question is whether or not there's access, and I don't think there was any testimony.
And I don't disagree that there may not have been a problem with the trailer that was there previously, and there may not be a problem with the septic system, but in my opinion, nobody ever called Smithfield and called Environmental to go out there and check that system, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, that's what I've heard, so I mean, are we gonna take these one at a time and vote on them one
I
at a
would.
time? Is that what you recommend?
I would recommend that strongly.
Can we start with number one, Mayor?
Yeah,
All right, so, easy.
You want to see this one?
Yeah, that would help. Shush it.
And as you work through these, I would suggest also, given the
Number one is that the application will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plans as submitted and approved.
I would suggest that you cite to particular evidence that's been submitted tonight, where and when you can. That is the best practice as you work through each one. Cite to something that makes you say yay or nay as to any one of those four criteria.
You want to do it all? You want me to do the motion?
Do it.
After learning that the property is going to have to be evaluated by the county for a septic system, I would make the motion that the application will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plans and submitted as approved. And I would make the motion that the applicant has met that qualification.
And there's a motion on the floor. Does everybody understand the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Second one says that the application meets all required specifications and conforms to the standards and practices of sound land use and planning in the town code of ordinances or other applicable regulations. I would make the motion that the applicant has met that qualification as well. And I would make the motion to approve.
Okay, motion, everybody understands that one too, right?
Or do I need to amend the land use plan since it says multi-jurisdictional?
I'd ask Mr. Quinn that. I don't think, if you're doing a special use permit, not a,
Yeah, we're not amending the zoning map, we're just giving the special use for them to be able to go within the correct zone, okay. Yes, sir. All right, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Based on the evidence presented tonight, as long as the applicant goes through with the county permitting, then I believe that the applicant will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property and will not be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or other neighborhood uses. I would make the motion that the applicant has met that and approved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Make the motion that application will not adversely affect the adopted plans and policies to the town or violate the character of existing standards for development of the adjacent properties.
All in favor?
Aye.
With all findings of the facts being met, I make the motion to approve the application for SUP 2025-06.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that, motion is approved. Next, old business. Year 25-26 budget reschedule.
So we have not made any changes to the fiscal year budget that we presented at the last board meeting. I do want to add for the public that I sent an email on Monday. We did only increase the budget fully by 7.41% from fiscal year 25. I think that was I think what we did was an excellent thing, and it's not that big of a jump. That does include the 15% tiered COLA, addition of 3 fire captains, replacement of vehicles, a 7% increase in water and sewer rates, which is a pass-through from Dunn and Johnston County, and a 3.5% increase in electric rates, which again is a pass-through from Johnston County. or from Nikempa, sorry. I want to remind everyone that the revenue neutral we gave you guys at the last board meeting had the appeals included in it. If we do the revenue neutral based off of the value that's on the tax card right now with no appeals, we would have to be at 37.5. That's just not feasible in our minds. We were asked at the last meeting to do a 10-cent equivalent to what the rate was last year. And so that would put us at a 44-cent tax rate, which would give us a revenue of 2.905, which is a $798,572 reduction in the current proposed budget. So that's based off the valuation from last year. Is that? Okay. You asked for a 10-cent reduction from the valuation of last year.
From the tax rate that was
Right.
current from last year.
Right.
Which was 61 cents, so it dropped down to 50.
But if you're going by values, it would be if we're looking at what the values were in last year's tax card versus this year's tax card, that 10-cent reduction would be 44 cents. Okay. So threw me off. But that would be a $798,572 reduction, which at this point we would say, what services are we going to cut to make that reduction? Keep in mind that the fire tax is what it is, so you can't pull from the fire department. So you technically can't pull from the 3 fire chiefs because they don't utilize fire captains, because they don't utilize, theirs is 12 cents. That's where it stands. We were also asked to look at valuation numbers from this year versus last year, so we did use Commissioner McLamb's. So his 24 valuation was 218.5. That tax rate for the 61 cent last year, his bill would have been $1,332. With the tax valuation of this year, it moved up to $365,870. So with the 56 cent tax rate that we've proposed, that would put his bill at $2,048.87.
That's just for the town, correct?
That would be what your bill is.
For the town.
Right.
Not the county.
Town.
Yes.
The town, correct.
And then the county's gonna kick in, it'll be another 18, so it's gonna be right at $4,000.
Right. So I also sent you all an email about what the county manager did. He did do a 3-cent reduction in tax rate.
Well, wasn't that a recommendation?
That was a recommendation, correct. Just like mine is a recommendation. That was his proposed budget,
Right.
yes. And so we will not know what theirs is until their next board meeting and see what the Board of Commissioners have decided on. So at this time, staff is asking if you're not going to approve the budget as it's been proposed, then give us what you would propose. Like, give us some suggestions in how you want to cut it.
You said net neutral would be what?
37.5. Revenue neutral.
So I understand you said cut services, say like the legislature pulls something off and passes the law where we gotta be net neutral the first year. So what's the plan?
If that happens, which right now it's still sitting, nothing's been done since March. If that happens, everyone has to go to revenue neutral. You're going to have to cut the budget in half. I mean, you're going to have to. That's no salary increases for employees, which totally goes against what our council priorities are. You will not get new vehicles. I mean, everything would stay the same with nothing new into the new fiscal year.
Right, it'd be the same amount of money we collected last year.
Right, but we would not be able to add staff. We would not be able to do any of those things that we've proposed.
Well, honestly, with the insurance, if it goes through like it is planning on, we have to start paying more of our insurance, you're gonna be saying the employees are gonna be taking.
They're going to be taking a pay cut. And
Because they're gonna have to start coming more out of their check to pay for their health insurance.
And I will say, if anybody's been paying attention this week, the state did propose their budget, and what we talked about at the last meeting in regards to the state health plan is on the table now. And so they are going to likely see additions in what they have to pay in their premiums. So we have to take that into consideration. Revenue neutral would already create a cut in services across the board because that doesn't take into account the increase in cost that we are taking to provide these services from vendors, from the equipment we buy, from the water, sewer, and electric rates. So revenue neutral already puts us at a deficit from the increases that we are already having to pass along for next year.
Well, I don't think anybody, and I don't even understand what the state is trying to do as far as talking about revenue neutral. No municipality can operate at a revenue neutral. We had done that in the past and we couldn't operate. We couldn't do anything. I'm not for revenue neutral. But I also, I just feel there's got to be another way. I really feel like the budget was balanced last year off water and sewer. The increases that we took, we're looking at a increase of 8.90% in our water and sewer rates just because Dunn and Harnett County is going up. Is there not some other way as far as impact fees and things like that?
Impact fees are not allowed.
Doing it.
So impact fees are not allowed. They're illegal. So that's why we have system development fees. System development fees are only able to be charged to new developments coming in. So what you approved tonight for Mr. Denning, he will pay system development fees. Those can only go towards your debt and your capital. So we've been collecting those, and that is in your, when you get your financials, you can see where we've collected in that. But like I said, that's a very specific place where it can go, and you can only use it on new developments. You cannot use it on your existing customers. And the rate increase, yes, it's a pass-through for the rate increases for what we are paying wholesale, but it's also the rural water study that you guys have done. They don't want to hear about it. Those said we were supposed to go up 10 to 15% every year for 5 years, the 4 or 5 year projections. Because of what we've seen in the revenues this year, we actually were able to come back on that. So like you said, it's only that 8.9%. Again, that's because there was such an extended period of time without any increases in base fees or usage fees. The infrastructure cannot be maintained and kept up, keeping fees at bare minimum. So the 8.9%, yes, it's going to go up for the next 2-3 years according to the rural water study, but so is everybody around us. And that's not a town of Benson issue. That's the cost of doing business is going up for everybody issue.
Yeah, but our water rate, can you pull what I had asked for before? Can you pull our surrounding areas? How is it every time I look at anything, it looks like Benson is the highest rate of anybody anywhere around.
So who?
Well, while she's pulling that up, because her finger's already going, you have to also think about, we have to buy our water. So if you're looking at a water and sewer fund as its own entity, which it is, it's an enterprise fund, it has to fund itself. You cannot pull from taxes on that. You have to be able to pay the expenses that comes with what you're buying. You have a wastewater treatment plant that you have to buy chemicals, you have to get all that brown back to clear and get it back into. So all that is coming at an increased cost because we're having to buy the materials to do that. But when you look at your water rates and you look at other towns, you have to take into consideration if it's done, their water is going to be a cheaper amount because they have a water source. They have a plant that they provide themselves their own water.
Are we buying water and selling it to Johnson County and they sell it cheaper than us?
We buy water from Johnston County.
We buy water from Johnston County.
They buy anything from us?
We provide them sewer. And that's at a bulk rate that we have for them. But we buy water, 10% of our water sales come from Johnston County and 90 comes from Dunn. what town do you want to look at? She's got several sitting here.
Look at, Smithfield, look at,
Smithfield has a water plant, so that's not going to be comparable.
okay.
4 Oaks, do they buy, is right here? Does 4 Oaks buy from the county? They do? Okay, so try 4 Oaks. Give me a minute. Their fee schedule looks different than ours.
I'm just gonna say this, and y'all know I'm the more liberal, probably one of the most liberal spenders on this board, but I'm also gonna preface that, would I probably pay, not probably all of you, but I probably pay a lot more taxes on property in the town than the average homeowner does. And I wanna tell you that from my standpoint, from since I moved back here in 2012, you've got a lot of people moving into this area, and a lot of people that live in this area, and a lot of people that are putting money into this area, and the town's infrastructure, the paving, the cart paths that we drive around is not keeping up. We've only got $100,000 budget in this budget for paving this year, and we've not paid anything in the past 4 or 5 years except for hot spots. And I can tell you, from me and my family standpoint, I wouldn't cut any cent, because I don't think we bring in enough revenue to do what we're supposed to do today. And the fact that we're sitting here and we're cutting 3 police officer positions to be able to cut the sit when we already know that we're having trouble getting police officers, I think we should have went up 10 cents years ago. And I think that people just got a reevaluation on their property values. And I would, everyone that called me in my office as a real estate agent, I said, would you sell it for that? Because if you, and all of them told me no. They would not take that little of amount for their money. They just got a reevaluation, and congratulations, everybody's equity just went up, right? And that's the way I look at it. And so they have to decide what they want. But at the end of the day, our streets are horrible. Our maintaining of our property is horrible to the point that we're talking about selling property because we can't afford to keep it up. And so I don't understand how we're going to sit here and say that we're going to continue to reduce, and that means that every time we reduce, that's how we got into the situation with the sewer and the water that we're in now, is because years ago the board wasn't willing to increase sewer. That's why I don't have stormwater in front of my street, because when it failed, the town board at that time said, we're not going to spend the money, we're just going to DC it, and now I have to look at a puddle every time it rains in front of my yard. And it's because people are so worried about having to pay what they use. If you can't afford the taxes on a piece of property, it's because you're not using it to its best use, and it's time for you to let go of it. That's just my opinion.
We had a public hearing, but yeah.
I don't know this commissioner's name. He just spoke.
My name is William Neighbors.
William Neighbors?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've met you all my life.
Okay.
Appreciate what you just said. Our streets, and it's not just Benson, but streets all over the country. I do a lot of bike riding, secondary roads. We, as a country, have got to turn our attention back to infrastructure. And I know if there's electricity or water that we're having to pay for, you just got to cover it in the taxes. But if there's any service that you think you're providing, I'm not seeing it. I'm just riding on these roads. I want the roads fixed. I don't know what we got to do. I don't know what we got to cut. We need the roads fixed. And I'm not going to be happy, and I don't think many of the citizens. I've been here since 1952. I'm invested in this community. I'm a pastor of a church. I'm embarrassed that we live in a third world community road-wise. There's no excuse for that. And I know property taxes are going to go up because we changed the valuations. That's going to shock everybody from August. But we need to fix these roads. And if you're going to focus on anything, it needs to be fixing these roads. I think I estimate, just looking at the budget, that's $1.4 million is that correct?
Correct.
1.4 million in salary. Go without a salary, fix the damn roads. Thank you.
I agree with you.
So in regards to the paving, we haven't paved because we know, we've talked about this, we have a lot of water and sewer projects that are currently going on. So our plan is to pave once those are done, and like as those projects are getting done, we can pave. I will say that in the project that we currently have has $259,000 in there. We need to do an amendment to move the money from this budget from PAL bill into that. That's another $100,000. And then you guys can utilize the money from PAL bill in the 26 fiscal year into that. So it's going to be roughly $450,000.
How many streets is that gonna give me?
Is Jay here?
Yes.
How many streets is that going to get you, Jay? 450,000.
Depends on how long it is.
It does.
So how many miles?
It's on when.
Does depend on how long they are. I already have some streets in mind, but they'll probably get us 6, 7 streets.
6 or 7 streets.
If we paved the entire town, right now, it will cost us between 7.5 and 8 million.
Is there not any USDA loans or funding at low interest rates that we could do that and put Power Bill toward a payment, a loan payment every month, every year, instead of just banking it? And
I can check. I'm not sure if USDA will cover, and I'm not sure where their funding sources are right now. But that is something I can look into tomorrow. I can email them and talk to them.
We took out a 10 or 20-year loan. Asphalt should last 20 years, right?
It should be.
It should,
20
yes.
years. If we took out an $8 million loan and did all of our streets, what would the payment on that if we had a 1% loan with USDA or government funding? Would that $100,000 of power money cover that payment? And that way we could pave the streets without having to raise taxes out of the blue sky. But I mean, and I'm looking at other things. We're fixing to have to hire a new town manager, which means we're fixing to have to spend $20,000 or whatever we're going to have to look at tonight to go through the same process we did last time, and that's not in this budget either. Right?
Well, that's technically in my salary. Depends on, I mean,
Well, depending on if we got to pay for an interim.
right.
Right. So
Right,
we've
and
not
what that
decided
looks
yet,
like, and
right?
that'll be talked about in closed session, but if you have to pay an interim and, how long it takes you, and so you look at how many months it'll take. What I have in hand is 3 to 4 months. So what my salary would be in those 3 to 4 months can go towards the look of a new manager.
And I know there's difference between commercial and residential. But go down go look at that jungle that is beside my property on Main Street right now. It's 2 foot high, a bush, 2 or 3 foot high.
Yeah, but that's
bushes.
gonna get fixed.
Well, I hope so. But I mean, it's gonna cost money, and so, I mean, that's gonna be, I mean, I don't know what you cut. And I guess my question is, these are the things that I think I would cut, because a penny's what, 61, a penny's 61?
Yeah, a penny
Right?
is
Where are
roughly
we at with the
61,000.
alliance? If you wanna cut a penny, we can cut the alliance, or is that gonna do us any good? I'm not willing to cut salaries. I'm not gonna vote for that. I'm not cutting salaries. I'll cut my salary. You can have my $207 a month.
A penny,
I mean,
a penny is 64,644.
So we've got $50,000 in the budget to the alliance. I don't know, can you got an update of where that is?
Well, Max just will be, yeah.
Oh, Max.
But he just went to the bathroom, but
But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know of anything, we're cutting 3 police officer positions, guys. That worries me. I don't know why. I don't know why, because we can't keep them anyway, but the idea that we're reducing a force in today's world, that worries me. I want to see paving. I don't care if we got to pave and then dig up the street 3 years later. We'll figure out how to pave it again. But right now, it's bad. It's really bad. And I'm just speaking from me. I'm happy to pay more for better service, and always will be, because the better service I have, the better property value I have, and that's the way it works. And and right now, I agree with him. Our constituents are not seeing anything out of any of the tax dollars they're paying. Our trash service is below par. We get police complaints every month. I don't know enough about the fire service in Benson. I don't know about that, but and I'm just saying that is what I get bombarded with every week. And that's and if I'm going to pay $6,000 next year compared to the $4,500 I paid last year, I expect to see something from that money.
Right.
not for it just to go and do the exact nothing that I've been doing on this board for the last 8 years, I feel like. Because we've not done anything to better this community.
Well, you could, and I'm just saying, in what you're saying, as far as paving, you could add the 5 cent back, and we put it all towards paving.
I would be in favor of that. I can't help that your property's worth what it is. The people that I know that disputed went to the county, and I've got phone calls on this. They went and disputed, and when they do this, they do a global evaluation. They look at all the properties in the area. When you dispute, they send an appraiser to your property. I had a lady call me a month ago who was upset because she disputed because she thought it was the right thing to do, and the county said, okay, we'll come and look at your property. I wish she'd have called me first because I would have told her to stay quiet. That's what I told her on the phone. They went and looked at it. They raised her property value an additional $40,000 because they said, yep, you're exactly right. We did not tax you enough. That's exactly what they told me. And they're exactly right. They're exactly right. And that's why I told her, I said, if I were to put a sign for sale in your house today, because I could write you a check. I'll write you a check for that amount right now for your house. No, I'm not going to sell for that. Well, then pay your part, and let's get the town right.
So 5 cent would give you an additional $323,000 in revenue to pay,
Plus
to go towards the 259 plus the 100, but plus the 459.
So do that again, 450, additional 300, is that including the 100 that's in the budget now, or plus another 100?
It would be the 100, so the 259 plus the 100 that's in this fiscal year, the 100 in next fiscal year, so that would be 459, and then the 323.
1.483. That's a down payment on a loan, if we can find one. And that's enough to get something moving. That's what your people want. They want good trash service. I've had broken trash cans behind my office for the past 6 months. The employees don't care. I mean, they don't. I mean, the lids, I pick up the lids out of the middle of the alley every day because they're broken off the top of the cans. I don't understand how you get employees to say, oh my goodness, I need to bring out a new trash can, but apparently that don't happen. And so,
Well, and that's
I mean,
changing,
we're fixing
thankfully.
that, right? We
That's
had that-
getting fixed.
We had I was standing on the street today. Kim was standing there with me because one of their trucks broke down and leaked hydraulic fluid all over Colonnade, all over, and
Yep.
mad homeowners, right? And we're fixing it. We're fixing that, but we got to look at other areas and fix those too. And we've not done any paving in years. And if you, I mean, and I'm sorry, I'm just not in favor. I mean, I understand the budget was created, but I still believe that the proposal gives us nothing. Because next year, we're going to be in the same boat that we have been for the past 8. Pink Trash, can't think of the name of it, they're going to go up next year in rates because their cost of fuel is going to go up, and their cost of equipment and employees are going to go up next year. The electrical people are going to go up. The gas company goes up every year. Everybody goes up every year. It is what it is, right? I mean, it's the cost of doing it. Water and sewer, yeah, it sucks, but that's not us. We're passing through. That's why we're going in August. So quit passing, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, water and sewer is its own entity. It's its own business. We charge what we get charged, and I can't help it, right? There's bad people in the ETJ right now because they're getting charged double. That's what the engineering study said we had to do to be able to maintain that service. I'm sorry. It's, I mean, but it's, everybody's salary goes up every year unless you work for the town of Benson.
And the state of North Carolina.
Say what?
And the state of North Carolina.
No, they just proposed in the state
Now,
budget.
they propose it.
It's a
Believe
proposal.
me,
That's
that's
it.
proposal.
It's proposal, and so that's what we're talking about right now, right? And so, but, because I read that the other day, yesterday, when they
Yeah.
proposed
I
for
read
the
it too.
teachers' pay.
Yep.
Believe everything you read.
But it's a, I don't know. I don't know what you do. If y'all wanna go with the status quo, then I say we reduce it. I'm tired of status quo. I'm tired. I'm tired of sitting in this meeting 2 times a month and not getting anything out of it as a citizen. Right?
Well, also, too, I want to just ask, and you might be there and I missed it, do we have any money we're putting back to start putting our reserve fund back in?
So, well, we talked about that today. I mean, what the 5 cent is giving you. Sorry, it's bedtime. Sorry, it's my kid's bedtime. What the 5 cent reduction is going to give you is pretty much baseline of what we currently have and an increase in the salaries and then those 3 new positions and the replacement of vehicles. But, you know, Angie and I were talking about that today. There's not really, I mean, we're going to have to watch the budget quarterly to see what we can put back. And that is the plan. Now, water sewer is separate. So water and sewer should come up above, because we budget for that, just like this year, it should have a positive variance at the end of the year, so that we can start building that fund balance back. In regards to the general fund, I mean,
It's status quo.
it's very much status quo.
Money to put in savings if we reduce. Well, you're gonna have to not reduce taxes.
That's fine, but we're gonna have to do more than just raise the salaries, I think.
Well, we set
Right.
that reserve level. We've talked about it for years.
Right.
We have yet to come as a board and make a motion and say, I want us to put this much money in that reserve. We've never done, we've talked about it for years, but we as a board have never said, we want this money put in reserve.
Right.
And that's what it's gonna take to be able to do that. But first, you gotta figure out how you're gonna fund it, right? And right now, you can't really fund it. And that's and I know, I mean, I just don't know what you cut, right? The water and the sewer, and I'm gonna clarify this in public, even though nobody watches this, like 100% that.
Oh, people watch it.
Okay.
They definitely.
The ETJ people that are mad right now, they're not getting 2 times the increase that we're getting. I clarified that. They're
Right.
getting, we are all going up the same level. That 2-time increase was the one-time study thing to be able to service them.
Correct.
So they're not getting,
They're getting,
They're going up
They're-
the same.
they're going up the
7%.
the same 7%
That's
that
exactly.
everybody else is.
so how many people do we have in the ETJ that is been affected? It's not a large amount, is it?
Oh, I can't, Ray, do you know by,
How many water customers do we have outside of city limits?
I think it's 463. That's a rate.
I don't know that one.
But they don't pay city taxes to help to go toward the infrastructure, which is why their rates are higher.
So they're getting, they
Right.
don't have city
And that's what I told a couple of them, like, if you, I'll be glad to take your annexation paperwork, and you can come in and you'll get a reduced rate, and then you'll get a tax bill at the end of the year.
Right.
Just like I do.
They don't get the tax bill that we get.
That's exactly right.
Well,
So that'd
they're
be,
just
what was it,
county.
2,300, 2,800?
Yeah.
Huh?
What did we say earlier, Tim, for Dean's amount that's going up this year?
Hold on, I'm doing too many
2,300,
things.
the 2,800 that you have to pay for the town, that's money that they're not paying. So they
Right.
have an increase in their rate structure to accommodate that increase, right? So
When
it makes sense.
that they pay. And when I did my tax bill for the city, not including the county, I have no control over what the county does, right? I wish that the county would go away and that we could just tax them all ourselves, and then we could decide where the money goes, because we get a piece back of what we pay the county, right? But we can't do that. So my house bill, my tax bill is gonna go up about $300 a year on the city side. I will gladly pay $300 more a year to get some pavement in this town. And I know I'm only one of, 3,900 or 4,100 people?
I'm also,
Uh-huh.
I'm not only an employee, I'm a taxpayer too, and I agree, I'm ready to see, my roads, I live on West Martin
That's right.
Street, and luckily Public Works did come, because I hit that hole a few times, and I thought it was gonna knock my car out of alignment. So I agree, but like I said, I've got stake in this town, not only just as an employee, but also a taxpayer.
And I mean, and we all do. We all have the same stake in the town and the community. I just want to be proud of it. That's all. I want to be proud of what my life savings is on Main Street. If Main Street fails and I lose property value because Main Street is a DOT road, thank God. Thank God it's a DOT road. But my parking lot's not. And if I lose that parking lot, then my family goes broke. And it's the same way with y'all if you just own a house, right? The real estate is the biggest investment you will ever make, right? And if you own a property, why would you not want the town to maintain to the same standard that you would your grass? Right? And maybe I'm the only one that likes to make my yard look pretty, but at the end of the day, I want my town to be a reflection of what my yard looks like. And I know I've seen most of y'all's yard. Y'all's yard look pretty too. So why wouldn't we want the town properties to do that? Maybe we take the money from the Civic Center. I don't know have we got that money going anywhere if we sell that to the Civic Center? Maybe we put that toward paving.
It'll go to the general fund, so you can use it towards whatever.
We can put that toward paving or something, but we've got to do something to bring this town, because there's no need for anybody to worry about economic development or alliances or anything if you roll a developer in here and you roll them down these roads right now, because they're gonna laugh. Because it looks horrible. It absolutely looks horrible.
And I will say, I can't speak because I'm not a town citizen. I live right outside of town, but I do have family that live in town, and they moved from downtown Raleigh, and they are used to a level of service, and they will gladly pay what it takes to keep up the town. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in these new homes, in these subdivisions, people moving into Benson. I think you've alluded to it before. They're used to paying what they have to pay, that doesn't help fix the problem for those who have been in town and the people that you guys are hearing from in your constituents. I completely understand that, but I do think, as William alluded to, there are people that would be willing to handle that increase to get a better service. Now, if you want to look at a better service in terms of paving, we can still also, the board can look at, are there other things across town service-wide that we might not be performing the best at and are looking to cut in this upcoming budget to, again, save money, look at a reduction in cost if you guys want to. But those are things we want to hear from y'all, because we don't want to make sweeping cuts of services or expenditures without your direction.
142.
Out of 2,090.
And I love them. I love everybody. No one says, I'm not saying, but they don't vote and they don't pay taxes, right? And they get services at a higher rate because they get a portion of the services that I get that I have to pay taxes for, right? And that is what it is. And they have the right at any point in time to put in annexation paperwork, and they can start helping pay their taxes, and then we can reduce their rates. All they got to do is come and petition to the board, and we'll vote. We'll gladly take them in. That'd be 2,091, right? But I mean,
Well, the number would stay the same because that was total.
Is it legal to, I know when you live in other towns and areas or whatever, you have assessments to take care of the extras. Is such a thing as taking every house in Benson and putting a one-time asset fee on it? You can't do that.
That's
The only
I
time,
think that's an impact
only thing that,
fee.
yeah, that's an impact fee, and that's
That's an
illegal. The
impact.
only way we can get revenue is sales tax,
Yeah.
which is going away quickly because everybody Amazons, right? I mean, unless you got occupancy tax and stuff. And then the other one is tax revenue off the property.
Occupancy tax goes to the county.
But we just get a portion of it. right?
3%.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
A portion.
Pass-through.
That's a
And it shall
portion.
be spent for tourism.
That's right. So,
Because, right, because
that's
it
right.
goes to tourism board, yeah.
But it's sales tax and it's property tax. That's the only two things that we can get, right? And it's a and I
Utility
understand.
franchise
I understand that people are mad because there's a lot of people that own a lot of rental property, and now they're going to have to pay for higher property taxes. And when I got here, we were like 68% tenant versus 32% owner in the town of Benson. Now I think we're in the 50s, right? It would be my hope as a ownership.
I figured it was not even that.
No, I think we're in around 54% last time I looked up, somewhere around 54% tenants versus 46% owners, right? I think is when last time I looked it up. But I mean, and tenants get these services and they pay for their rate fees for their trash and their utilities, but I mean, maybe it's time to do some motivating to some people to move some properties.
But 2023 was 52.8 owner occupied.
52.8, I was a couple percent off. So, but I mean, like, we've got to do some motivation. I mean, if the taxes is what it takes to motivate them, people will come and, look at what Blake just did. He's tearing down 2 blocks to put up townhomes, so we have something over there that looks nice. Right? And are they going to be affordable? I don't know. I don't know what that rate is going to be, but we need more infield development. It does us no good to continue to expand our system if we can't take care of what we got.
I don't want to go out on a limb because I'm a lawyer and we don't do that. But Mr. Danny Mag asked about special assessments. You can, I don't have it ready to
I need to
discourse on it right now, so I'm not, hopefully not opening Pandora's box with you, but there's a possibility, there's a procedure for instituting special assessments, like a sand fee at the beach for where the beach erodes and all the properties enjoy the beach and they assess every property on their tax bill, or I know there's like in Harnett County, I think they have it's a school-related assessment, but yeah, you can, it's a process, and it's not gonna be something you could probably pass in this budget, but you can consider special assessments having gone through the proper procedure. I think it's let's see, GS 168-216, I think. Anyway, that's just a tidbit Don't ask me to go into the whole chapter verse on it, because I'm not prepared, but yeah.
I know when I do an
Something to think about.
Streets are on there, yeah.
when I do HOA budgets, right, and they got private roads, and we pay $2 million, whatever we're working on right now to pave the roads privately, and then we start assessing HOA fees every month, and I add a 5% increase every year for that, and say in 20 years I want to need that, 160% in the budget to be able to repave those roads. We've never done that here as a town. We call it a reserve study. I don't know why we don't do stuff like that in this town and say, hey, this street that we just paved today is going to last 20 years, and on 21 year we need to make sure we got enough put in reserve to pull out and pave that street. I don't know why town, but I know why town, because politicians are involved. That's why town budgets don't do that, because y'all are scared to walk down the street and tell somebody that owns a rental house that they got to pay more in taxes when they don't care. They're going to raise the rent on the tenant, and the people you're going to hurt are the tenants. But the tenants don't pay taxes either. So, I mean, I'll be the bad guy. I'm not a politician. I'm just here for the fun of it. But at the end of the day, business costs what it costs. We've got to pay our part to make sure we can get the service we want. I want yard collection. Everybody did. We took the survey. I want yard collection. I want recycling. Actually, I don't even care about recycling, but I want 2 cans, whether they be trash can or recycling and trash. I mean, I want my streets paved. I want police officers. I want a fireman or an EMT to show up if I call 911. And I want stormwater on Pine Street again that I don't have, right? And I would love to have I'd love to have stormwater back on my street. Those are the things that I want power to come on, and thank God. That's the reason I moved to town, right? When I lived on the farm and Fran came through, we went without power for a week, over a week. I've been out power maybe 2 or 3 hours at most in the past 12 years that I've lived in the town of Benson. Thank you, electrical department, if you're back there. So I mean, that is, and I want those people that provide those services to be looked after, because we worry about the cost on the individual, but they're individuals too, right? And so we can't screw them to help people that vote for us, right? Everybody needs to get the same treatment across the board. That's the way I feel about it. I won't get off my bucket.
I got a question. The $400 and something thousand we're gonna owe DOT. When is that money due? Is it in 26 or 27?
It'll be due in 27. When the project's done. So
Is that money already taken out and put into a line item or no?
That's got to come out of water and sewer, and we haven't been able to. So that's why you have to follow the rural water study to continue to get positive in your water sewer, so you can pull that money out.
That don't go into water and sewer.
Water sewer line? Or is
No,
it
storm drain.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So in reality, that we do have that money in fund balance in the general fund, but yes, in reality.
We reality have the money in fund balance. It's not a percentage off of an audit.
Right, currently we do, yes.
Okay. I mean, and then we talk about the reserve level, right? We've got to put some reserves there. Right?
And Angie has looked at the capital management trust fund that yields a much higher interest rate. So moving money into that, she's working on that.
I hear y'all too. I tell you, every year our budget's almost $20 million.
Right.
But 15 2 years ago,
Yeah, but you've also increased your population.
I know it's a tough call because we don't know what we can cut. But at the same time, we are putting a burden on these people, and we got to quit. Somehow we got to quit spending money. We just
maybe we could look at maybe into USDA loan, and then look into maybe an
Special
asset
assessment,
as
yeah.
to how much each household in Benson would need to pay, and bring it back before the board, and let's just kind of tune it in and see how good it is or not.
We're going to do an assessment, though. How many people do you think you could send a $400 or $500 bill to today that would pay? And how many liens are we going to file? And how many attorney costs are we going to have to go after that assessment? I can tell you what the ratio is in HOAs for me going after assessments, and it's not good. I've probably got 20% of homeowners in my communities in lien processes right now because they ain't paying HOA dues or HOA assessments. It's the same thing. The tax is guaranteed. Yeah. It's an easy way, and if you say let's do a $500 assessment one time this year, why not divide that over 12 months on a tax rate?
Right. And I just want to remind everybody, when we did our first tax increase 2 years ago, the last one we had was in the 90s. You cannot compare what the business of the town was in the 90s compared to where we are today. We are much larger as a city. We're much larger in staff. I think when I came here in 2014, we were maybe 35, 40 probably at best. We're crunching on 65 to 70 plus part-time. So, I mean, we're growing, and
But at the same time, if you increase the staff, you should be having an increase in revenue that pays for that staff somehow.
You do.
you do, services and taxes.
That's the only way we get revenue. This ain't a business. You can. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the majority of your general fund is property taxes.
You do. If we tie, you do.
Had the tax rate been increased between the 90s and the last few years, every time that there was a revaluation, that would have exponentially increased the revenue the town was getting, right? But because there was such a long gap without a tax rate increase, yes, there was a large jump in the actual tax rate, but we missed the increase in that revenue over the years to compound year to year,
Look
right?
at it like a business. If I
How
have
many
an
times do we
HOA
revenue?
and I have covenants, and some of y'all don't live in HOAs, you live in HOA, so but you live in an HOA, and so me as their manager, she doesn't have this ability, but as their manager, I have the ability to increase their rates 10% every year to keep up with inflation, without a vote, 10%, because you have to have that inflation measure in there. The idea that you're going to be revenue neutral is insane. You can't run a business out. If your provider for glasses called you today and said your glasses cost was going up 10%, are you going to go revenue neutral? I mean, it's the same thing.
They're worried about adding tariff money on.
Well, and it's coming, right? And it is what it is.
But that's gonna pass
I mean,
on
And that's
everything
gonna
you
pass to
buy
us
too,
too.
right?
But you
So
can't-
that 8% increase, the 8.9%
But look-
increase in
but look at
an
what
11%
income has
overall in
done.
salaries.
You can go to McDonald's and
We
flip a
got a
burger
lot.
for $15 to $18 an hour. So their revenue. I don't work for the same thing in the town of Cary that I worked for last year. I got a raise. Did you get a raise at gas company last year? Their income is steadily increasing, and so therefore their expenses should be following that income. What happened in COVID, we screwed everybody's budget, the HOAs and the towns, while we had to do assessments, is COVID happened. And insurance agencies got the ability to be able to take insurance to the roof. And so insurance rates are going up, right? And instead of that 5% that most of us budget a year annually, we all of a sudden got a 15% increase in 1 year. That's what happened here with transformers and everything else. A 15 to 20% increase. That's the reason we had to go up in electrical rates, because if not, we were going to go broke. So I ask you, do you want to go up or do you want to turn the lights out? That's the same thing. It is a business, y'all, and and y'all got to understand that. It is the same thing as if Dean's crew tells him that the gas line's going to cost $100 more next week because of a tariff. He's going to pass it on to his customer because he's not going to take it out of the pocket of his employees, and that's what y'all are asking to do, and that pisses me off, right? That pisses me off. People don't like where they live, they can go get a for sale sign today. They don't like me here, they can vote me out today. But you're asking the employees to take a cut because you're not willing to pay for the services that you get. And I'm sorry, I'm passionate about that because I'm a town employee, but that pisses me off. And I'm done. I said that before. Sorry. I'm passionate about this, y'all. So I am willing to make a motion that we don't decrease the taxes at all, and that we do some paving, and we give our constituents something to look at, that we look at. So I would say that we don't take the tax increase at all, and we don't take the 5 cent, and we go back up, and we put a reserve in place, and we pave some damn streets. That's my motion.
So your motion is to make sure we have it in the minutes, is to remain 61 cent and take that $300,000 that I mentioned and throw it in the paving.
Into the general fund.
Into
so
the
that
general
we can
fund.
decide
Okay.
what we're gonna pave and how much of a reserve do you want.
Okay.
Or else we're gonna go broke. We've already faced that this year.
Right, and like I called Kim today, and I said, I know they said they want us to put back $100,000 every quarter. I said, there's no way that we're gonna be able to do it, because it's gonna take every bit that and it's not that money's being wasted.
If you want $100,000 every quarter, she just gave you $386,000 to do it. That's the only way you do it.
Right. And believe me, I'm passionate about it.
It's numbers.
And the staff sitting out here can attest, the conversations have already been had. We've already said, no matter what happens, for this upcoming fiscal year, we're going to continue services as is unless we are told differently, but it is going to be on a tight leash. We are buying the bagged Fruit O's and not Fruit Loops, right? We are providing the same level of service, but we are all very cognizant because we understand how crucial it is to us, to our staff, to get these salary increases. They are on board and willing to do what it takes to provide the same level of service. But again, like Angie said, to be exceptionally cognizant of the fact that we don't have any frivolous spending. There's no bells and whistles in the budget as it stands.
It's a hard situation. We're all in a hard situation, right? But we've got to keep up with inflation, and we haven't. We haven't done it for years. And even doing this year ain't going to keep us up with inflation next year. We're going to be looking at the same thing next year. It's just the way your business goes. It's the way my business goes. It's the way everything goes, right? I mean, everything goes up every year, and I don't know how you stop that.
I was also just hoping that, I hope there's some other town or somebody that was doing something about, what about people fixing it?
They get an increase too.
I mean, they do too.
They get an increase every year too.
I mean,
my mama's on Social Security. It's not a lot, and it sucks, but they get an increase every year. The people that get half, because I have houses, they get an increase. They get reevaluation every year too, and it looks at what their income is. If their income goes up, their assistance goes down. If their income doesn't go up, they get an increase based off of what that is. There is assistance out there for people that need assistance. There's also jobs out there if people need a job. Right? It's not my job to look after those that don't look after themselves.
Well,
it's my
let me
job
tell
to
you,
provide service.
just let me tell you this. I worked 50 years, and I still have to work to help complement my income.
I know.
So, when you're talking about certain things, I have a real problem with that because Social Security does not meet the standards people think it meets.
I agree.
And I can tell you that.
I agree.
Can I just, Social Security came up. And we've talked about COLAs in the past, and we've talked about COLAs tonight a little bit. Just briefly, I do have the Social Security cost of living adjustments. January 2023, there was an 8.7% increase. In January 24, there was a 3.2% increase. In January 25, there was a 2.5% increase. We've not had a COLA increase at this town since July of 2022.
And that's the facts. They get assistance, right? And I understand. I work 2 full-time jobs because the fire department don't pay shit, right? It don't. It does not. And that's why I work 2 full-time jobs. And if you choose to be a teacher, you get 3 months in the summer to work a part-time job because you've got to do it. And I'm going to have to work until the day that I die, right? And I might be wrong on that. I'm not a teacher. But the idea that you're going to live off of one salary in a day ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. I couldn't have the lifestyle that I have if me and my wife both didn't work. The one income don't work anymore. And I mean, I don't understand how that. But I mean, I've worked 2 jobs for the past 25 years, and I don't understand. And so I understand that people struggle, but people also choose to struggle. If you want to be successful, there are ways to be successful. That's a mindset. That is a mindset. And I'm just telling you that I don't know what we can cut. And that's what they asked you earlier tonight. That's what she asked me earlier today on the phone, because we were talking about it today on the phone, right? I hope y'all talked to her too, because she gave you that opportunity. But at the end of the day, what do y'all want to cut? Look down the list of the budget. The only thing that I can see that we can cut is the alliance, and that's why I brought that up like that. The alliance might give you 3/4 of a penny if you want to cut the alliance. Is it doing anything for us? I don't know. I don't know where you're at with the alliance, right? But I don't see anything. I'd whole much rather cut the alliance and give them their raise than continue with the alliance and screw our employees.
I think we talked about that in the very beginning, and some wanted to have it.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. I don't. Is it bringing us anything?
I don't know. I didn't see that was going to bring nothing in, but they wanted to vote for it.
Well, it is bringing something. We've got a economic development person in place that's really working on putting something out there. And that's why this town is where we are, is because we don't have any industry in here that's bringing anything in. We don't have any $40, $50, $60 an hour jobs that we've got. Chicopee that's got a sign up. You go to work for them for $18 an hour right now.
That's right.
Okay? You've got to have industry. You can't compare us with Clayton that's got a $2 billion pharmaceutical factory that's coming in. You can't compare us with the towns that have got the manufacturing company.
So I do want to say, as far as the Alliance goes, the Alliance hasn't brought us any tentative customers or tenants for the Cross Point building. Those have all come from Johnston County Economic Development. Or direct phone calls that we're dealing with. We have not received any business from the Alliance.
And that's why our tax rate has got to be higher, because we don't have that income. We are a bedroom community, so the only way we can get income is to tax bedrooms. That's the only way we can do it. That's the only way we can provide services. What worries me is the same thing we've been talking about. I don't know how many on the board know about what we've been talking about 242, because they're in the final stages of the widening plan, and they're fitting to screw a whole lot of property owners out there, and we're not going to be able, that's going to kill our commercial availability between 301 and 40. And if we screw that up and we don't get involved in that, we've got a meeting with them on June the 19th with DOT, because somebody called me complaining about it. If we don't get that right, you might as well double our tax rate, because in 20 years you're not going to have anything, because we don't have any property. We don't have any property in the town of Benson, right? I love Dale. Dale's got plans, but Dale is not in the town of Benson. He's not annexed a thing. And so until we have property to sell, the only thing we can do is increase taxes. And so, and if it takes increasing taxes for somebody on Main Street or somebody on Hornet Street or 301 that's been sitting on a piece of property for the past 30 years and not been using it for a good use, I wish I could charge them an impact fee for lack of use. I wish I could charge them for letting their property sit there and do nothing to benefit the town. But you can't do that. The only thing you can do is raise their taxes until they get to the point they say, well, I'm not going to sit here and pay this tax bill. I'm going to sell it to somebody, and somebody will come in here and invest in this town just like I did, just like the guy standing up there earlier did, and Shane and Paul and everybody and Danny, all the other people that have come, and you have invested money in this town because we wanted to see something flourish. And I see it crumbling, and it makes me sick. And so, I told you 10 o'clock. It's 9:30, and Dean said he didn't want to be done by 9:30. I got a motion on the floor to remain at 61 cents.
His motion is 61 cents. Is your motion to approve the budget?
No, my budget is to amend the budget without a decrease, and then we will figure out where that money goes, whether it be paving after we get the money.
Amend the proposed budget.
Amend the proposed budget and delete the decrease of a nickel.
And put it in contingency.
And put it in contingency in the general fund. That's the motion on the floor.
All right, so we got a motion. How you want to do this?
I think you're probably gonna have to do it by
One person?
raising your hand.
All right, so
You can raise your hand.
Okay. How about, reading what your motion is?
You want me to do it?
Yes, please.
The motion on the floor is to amend the current proposed budget for a tax rate of 61 cents and to put the difference between the 56 and the 61 in contingency to allow the board to decide how that money is going to be spent, whether it be paving or stormwater or reserves or however y'all deem necessary. So we'll put it in contingency, and then we can discuss it in July how you want to spend it.
Everybody that's for it, raise your hand.
And if you don't, then it's gonna still be.
If you don't spend it and it stays in contingency, it will.
If you don't go with this, then
Well, you got to vote on this first. You got to vote this first.
Yeah.
So, I would say raise your hand for ayes.
Everybody in favor, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wait, hold it. This right here, we are going to go to 61.
No, we're going to stay at 61.
Stay at
We're not
61.
giving a reduction.
We're not doing that.
We're going to depend on the county to give away free stuff.
Okay.
All right.
We can forget that.
Every ayes, raise your hand.
We're going to
Ayes.
stay just like we are.
All right, ayes, raise your hand.
That's five.
Okay.
No.
I'll be the owner.
Five to one, then pass.
All righty.
All right, good deal.
Thank you.
Sorry for my passion, y'all.
I'm going to say this. That group back there, they thank y'all very much, and I'll say that for them.
And as part of the board, we appreciate you. Don't ever think you
Thank
ain't
y'all.
appreciated. Yeah.
Thank y'all very much.
All right.
That was easy enough.
Consider the approval of Roger Board of Adrian Dell.
Okay, I just need a motion, if y'all approve Adrian, then the Parks and Rec board will be full. And now that y'all
make a motion, we approve Adrian Deal for Parks and Recreation.
All in favor? Motion railroad street.
Angie, how many openings will be on the new board?
I think I have to look at my regular, I think there's, seven, where, did we say seven? I think it's 7-member board.
Seven, okay.
All right.
I made a motion that can we roll on?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
I made a
I
motion
just,
that we approve the closure of Railroad Street for the Faint Goats veteran ride.
Awesome,
They do
thank
every
you.
year. Is anybody?
and I'm sorry that wasn't in the previous meeting. It was a late entry.
That's all right.
But I gave them a copy.
Town manager.
I have stuff to talk about in the closed session, but we'll be closed on Monday for Memorial Day, and Friday, June the 6th, starts our Friday night sports with our police department and our Parks and Recreation department at 7 o'clock.
Attorney.
Same, happy Memorial Day.
That's right. Is it not really happy? It's Memorial Day. I don't think it's supposed to be happy.
A solemn Memorial
There
Day
you
to
go.
everyone. Pensive in remembrance of Memorial
That's
Day.
right.
Mr. Hall. Benson. Henry.
Good.
All I got is South Johnson lost out tonight, 8-2 or 8.
Yeah, they really.
Wow. God.
I don't have anything.
I'm good.
I made the motion that after a short recess, we go into closed session under General Statute 143.318.11A6 to consider qualification, competence, performance, character, fitness, and all those conditions of an employee.
You have to stay.